We are watching A News. I'm Bakhtiar Asanov, and let's see the top stories. Russia and Ukraine agreed to eliminate the use of force in the Black Sea, the White House reports. Top U.S. officials have shared sensitive data with a journalist on a messaging platform, sparking concern. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says Turkey is key for European security. Following recent talks in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, the White House announced that Russia and Ukraine agreed to eliminate the use of force in the Black Sea. The sides also agreed to hold strikes on energy infrastructure.
The White House announced that Russia and Ukraine had agreed to eliminate the use of force in the Black Sea, aiming to ensure safe navigation and prevent the militarization of commercial vessels. This understanding also included measures to halt strikes on energy infrastructure and work towards a lasting peace. The announcement came after several rounds of US-led mediation in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The US will assist in restoring Russia's access to global markets for exporting agricultural products and fertilizers, including reducing insurance costs and improving access to ports and payment systems for such transactions. The White House statement also noted that both Russia and the US will continue to work towards a stable and sustainable peace in Ukraine. However, despite extensive discussions, no formal agreements were signed. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov confirmed that Russia did not plan to formalize any documents following the negotiations. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov emphasized that any new agreement would require clear guarantees from the United States, specifically directing Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to adhere to the terms.
Нам будут нужны четкие гарантии, и гарантии могут быть...
We will need clear guarantees. And there may be guarantees, taking into account the sad experience of agreements with Kyiv. Guarantees may be only the result of a direct order from Washington to Zelensky and his team to do this, and not any other way. And it seems to me that our American partners have accepted this signal.
Мне кажется, наши американские партнеры этот сигнал восприняли.
Despite the announcements, little has been said regarding the mechanisms for observing the agreements reached in the framework of the Riyadh talks.
Former Ambassador Gustavo Aristegui provided his evaluation of the Black Sea Navigation Agreement attained by Russia and Ukraine through the U.S. mediation.
Well, we have seen that this is a very strange strategy in the ceasefire that is being negotiated between Russia and Ukraine under the auspices of the United States. It is probably the first time that I have ever seen in the last century a ceasefire by installments and by different regions. So they started with a 30-day ceasefire for strategic and energy infrastructure and critical civilian targets, which was by and large respected by Ukraine, not so much by Russia. Let's remember that some hospitals and civilian neighborhoods were targeted the same day that the principle of the ceasefire was accepted. This is an encouraging sign, but it needs to be said that, of course, the ceasefire in the Black Sea is more in the advantage of Russia than it is in the advantage of Ukraine. Ukraine has hardly any naval forces left. Whatever they do as operations in the Black Sea are done through naval drones, air drones, UAVs, as you call them, or their air force, but they do not have a real strength in as far as the Navy is concerned. The Russians, on the other hand, have one of their main fleets in Crimea. So they're trying to preserve what is remaining of the fleet. Let's remember that some of their most important battleships have been sunk or have been severely damaged by the attacks by the Ukraine. And in any case, we know that the Black Sea is crucial to distributing some of the most important amounts in the world of grain and food. So the ceasefire in such an important area of the world it's very good news, not only for the Ukrainians and the Russians, but definitely for those countries that are receiving Ukrainian grain.
Just hours before President Donald Trump's decision to launch operations against the Houthis in Yemen, classified information was allegedly leaked to the media. The use of the Signal application for such communications has raised serious concerns about information security.
President, your reaction to the story in The Atlantic that said that
US President Donald Trump launched a large-scale military airstrike campaign against the Yemeni Houthi rebels on March the 15th in response to their attacks on Red Sea shipping, and called on Iran, the group's main sponsor, to immediately halt its support for them. A few hours before the attack, it is alleged that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth shared details about the operation, targets and weapons in a messaging group, including to a journalist. The Atlantic's editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, says that he was unexpectedly invited on March the 13th to an encrypted chat group on the Signal messaging app called the Houthi PC Small Group. His report omitted the details, but he termed it a shockingly reckless use of Signal chat. The White House say the incident was publicized based on sources obtained by The Atlantic magazine.
Was shared with a journalist in The Atlantic, and were those details classified?
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does. I would love to comment on the Houthi campaign because of the skill and courage of our troops. I've monitored it very closely from the beginning. And you see, we've been managing 4 years of deferred maintenance under the Trump administration. Our troops, our sailors were getting shot at as targets. Our ships couldn't sail through. And when they did shoot back, it was purely defensively or at shacks in Yemen. President Trump said, no more. We will reestablish deterrence. We will open freedom of navigation, and we will ultimately decimate the Houthis, which is exactly what we're doing as we speak from the beginning, overwhelmingly.
President Donald Trump told reporters at the White House that he was unaware of the incident and said he was not a big fan of The Atlantic. A White House official said later that an investigation was underway and Trump had been briefed on it. Democratic lawmakers swiftly blasted the misstep, saying it was a breach of US national security and a violation of law that must be investigated by Congress.
The Houthi group in Yemen claims it hit Ben Gurion Airport in Israel and targeted US warships in the Red Sea using a series of missile and drone attacks. In a televised statement, Houthi military spokesman Yahya Saraya confirmed that the group has launched 2 ballistic missiles at the airport in Tel Aviv, identifying them as the Dulfigar and Palestine 2 hypersonic missiles. However, the Israeli military says it had intercepted a missile launched from Yemen on Sunday before it crossed into Israeli territory. The Houthi spokesperson also claimed to have targeted multiple US warships, including the US aircraft carrier Truman. The European Union views the Palestinian Authority as the best place to govern Gaza, according to EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas. The comment comes after her meeting with Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Mustafa in Ramallah. Kallas also expressed the EU's condemnation of the resumption of war in Gaza, urging for a return to the ceasefire. During a joint news conference, she highlighted that settler violence and new settlements being built in the West Bank were undermining the prospects of a two-state solution, which she described as the only path to sustainable peace. The newly released European Parliament's Winter 2025 Eurobarometer survey highlights historic levels of approval for EU membership linked to peace and security. Notably, 66% of EU citizens want the EU to take a more important role in protecting them against global crises and security risks. Meanwhile, 74% of EU citizens believe their country has benefited from being a member of the bloc. This is the highest result ever recorded in a Eurobarometer survey for this question since it was first asked in 1983. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has voiced readiness to advance Ankara's relations with European Union countries. Speaking after a cabinet meeting in Ankara, he said that the EU cannot ensure its security without Turkey.
Europe needs Turkey to help provide security. That's according to Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who says that recent heated debates have demonstrated that European security would not be possible without Turkey. He highlighted that Europe's need for Turkey is being openly acknowledged, not only in terms of security, but also in areas such as economy, diplomacy, trade, and social life.
As our European friends shape their policies on a rational basis, they also comprehend the importance of relations with Turkey. We see these as promising developments for the future of Turkish-EU relations. Turkey is ready to advance its relations with European countries and the EU in the framework of common interests and mutual respect.
Addressing the ongoing war in Ukraine, Erdogan said that Ankara has closely monitored recent developments and has maintained a consistent stance from the beginning. He stressed that Turkey continues to advocate for peace, emphasizing that peace has no losers. He also noted that Russia's partial acceptance of the U.S. 30-day ceasefire proposal is a modest but valuable step towards achieving peace.
Turkish authorities have detained 1,418 people since the start of protests amid growing unrest over an investigation into the Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality, according to Ali Yerlikaya, the Minister of Internal Affairs. Among those captured, individuals affiliated with 12 different terrorist organizations have been identified. The minister added that 123 police officers were injured. The demonstrations were linked to an ongoing probe led by the Istanbul Chief Public Prosecutor's Office. The Turkish Interior Minister stated that authorities would not tolerate any attempts to disrupt public order or threaten national security. There are significant opportunities for the development of relations between Iran and Armenia. Therefore, it's no coincidence that upon the invitation of the Armenian side, Iran's foreign minister is on a visit to Yerevan. During the visit, the Iranian foreign minister also met with the Armenian prime minister and other officials.
Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi is in Yerevan today at the invitation of Armenia's foreign minister Ararat Mirzoyan. They held a press conference as part of continuing political consultations between the foreign ministries of the two countries.
We highly value the relations between cultures and peoples, and we are determined to utilize all available potential to develop these relations and expand cooperation in other fields. We believe that there is untapped potential in both countries, which must be brought to light and used.
Armenia and Iran have agreed to make the most of the potential between the two countries. In particular, both countries have reached an agreement to support each other's positions on international platforms and cooperate.
Iran and Armenia are ready to create conditions in the transit sector to facilitate Iran's cargo transport to the Black Sea and using Iran's trucks to the Persian Gulf, India and Oman. Additionally, we have had excellent discussions about building a new bridge over the Araz River, which will facilitate cargo transport.
In our discussions with Minister Araghchi, we emphasized the significance of the existing economic cooperation between the two countries. This cooperation has achieved remarkable success, particularly in recent years. Armenia's foreign minister, Ararat Mirzoyan, highlighted this during a joint press conference with Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi.
We can note that in 2024, the volume of our bilateral trade turnover has surpassed the indicators of the previous 5 years, which is a significant achievement. Today, we continued discussions on opportunities to increase the bilateral trade turnover to $3 billion. In this context, it is important to mention that the current opportunities for bilateral trade turnover have been complemented by the signing of a free trade agreement between the EU and Iran.
The minister proudly noted that Armenia's relations with friendly Iran continue to develop steadily, and this is one of the priorities of the Armenian government's regional policy.
The rich agenda of our relations with Iran covers almost all areas of life: political, economic, transport, energy, science, and education. I must say that we have made progress in all these fields, and I am confident that the deepening of bilateral cooperation will continue.
Mirzoyan mentioned that Iran plays a role not only in Armenia's economic, but also in strategic, economic, and infrastructure programs. Therefore, it was emphasized that Iran supports the Peace Junction project proposed by Armenia's Prime Minister.
We believe that this project will create a significant opportunity for the development of relations between the two countries. Currently, we are at a point where we can say that we have various opportunities to develop relations between Armenia and Iran, and our relations are developing dynamically. We believe that this agreement is very important both for peace and stability in the Caucasus and for the development of economic relations, and we hope that the issues will be resolved soon.
During the visit, the signing of a peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan was also discussed. Aragchi noted that he and Mirzoyan exchanged views on developments in the South Caucasus.
We believe that this agreement is very important both for peace and stability in the Caucasus and for the development of economic relations, and we hope that the issues will be resolved soon.
During the visit, Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan received the delegation headed by Iran's Foreign Minister, Sayed Abbas Aragchi, who was on an official visit to Armenia. Additionally, there was a presentation of the Armenian translation of the book The Power of Negotiation, Principles and Rules of Political and Diplomatic Negotiations by Iran's Foreign Minister, Sayed Abbas Aragchi. This was hailed by the sides as another proof of Armenia-Iran mutual understanding, the significance of the power of negotiations, and of course, their unwavering friendship.
For more details on the visit of the Iranian foreign minister to Armenia, we go to a Tehran-based analyst, Turaj Shiraylilou.
Before the meeting of Iranian and Armenian foreign ministers in Yerevan today, official statements said that they will discuss bilateral ties as well as regional developments. As far as bilateral relations are concerned, Iran and Armenia have traditionally and historically friendly relations. There is large Armenian diaspora living in Iran, and also both countries have recently signed agreements on infrastructure projects, energy, transit. Also, they have discussed opening 3 new border crossings so that they can foster their bilateral relations. But when it comes to regional developments, as Mr. Aragchi also referred to in today's press conference with his Armenian counterpart, Iran wants to see peace in the region, and also he said that Iran welcomes the agreement on reaching a peace deal between Yerevan and Baku, because peace is something that this region needs drastically and needs it dearly in order to reach development and welfare. Well, we shouldn't forget that Iran considers itself as a regional player and a power wielder in this region, which is bordering through Armenia and Azerbaijan as through the Caspian Sea region, and it wants to maintain its influence in this region. And for this reason, Iran has been always suspicious of the activities of third countries, I should say extraterritorial countries, in the region and thinks that they are following up their own agenda, their own vested interests, which is not or which are not necessarily in favor of the regional countries, and that's why Iran wants to see its neighbors in peace.
Earlier, my colleague Orkan Amashov spoke to Ahmad Alili on the matter of Iranian foreign minister's visit to Armenia. Here is what he had to say.
Right after big developments taking place in the region, in South Caucasus, we are witnessing Iranian officials visiting Armenia. That happened before, in the previous months we would see that once there is some big development, Iranian ambassador in Armenia or some high-level Iranian officials visiting Yerevan and making certain messages that Azerbaijan closely follows. And it means that Iran wants to be very active in regional affairs. But the thing is, the perception in Baku is that Iran opted out for friendship with Armenia, and Azerbaijan can be very, very instrumental in its foreign policy with Russia and Turkey. And thanks to these factors, we are seeing that Hakan Fidan-Lavrov recent meeting, they are they are agreeing so many issues, and the Baku is part of this issue and the talks. But that Iran opting out for Armenia, that makes Iranian position in the region a bit limited. So that creates a big problem between Baku and Tehran.
Armenian Parliament Speaker Alen Simonyan stated that there were no expected changes in Armenia's relations with the Collective Security Treaty Organization. Simonyan explained that he did not believe any changes would occur regarding the CSTO and suggested that it was the CSTO itself that needed to review its existence. He also clarified that there had been no changes in Armenia's relationship with Russia, despite ongoing issues and raised questions. He refuted claims that Armenia had shifted its direction, calling them untrue. In December 2024, Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan had declared that Armenia considered itself outside the CSTO and stated that the point of no return for the organization had passed, confirming that Armenia had suspended its participation in the CSTO. Over the past year, Armenia's trade with Russia has surged, growing 1.6 times to $11.7 billion by the end of 2024. With Russia now making up over 40% of Armenia's total trade, this partnership is strengthening, but it also raises serious geopolitical questions.
Trade between Russia and Armenia has surged, growing 1.6 times to $11.7 billion by the end of 2024. Russia now accounts for over 40% of Armenia's total trade, strengthening economic ties, but also raising concerns about possible sanctions risks. Russian Minister of Economic Development Maxim Reshetnikov reports that Russian investment in Armenia has reached $4 billion, making Russian businesses key contributors to Armenia's economy. During the first half of 2024 alone, Russia's share in the Armenian foreign trade increased from 36% to 44.4%. Interestingly, during the same period, Russian exports to Armenia increased by 4.4 times, reaching $7.5 billion. However, Armenia's increasing trade with Russia has raised Western concerns. With Russia facing sanctions, Armenia is seen as a potential transit hub for restricted goods, dual-use technologies, and financial transactions. Western officials worry that Armenia might be helping Russia bypass sanctions, which could lead to greater scrutiny or penalties from the US and the EU. Some experts are concerned that heavy reliance on Russia could put Armenia at risk. If Western countries impose secondary sanctions on nations aiding Russia, Armenia may have to balance its trade with Russia and its ties with the West.
Germany has imposed new sanctions on Georgian officials over their role in what Berlin described as suppressing pro-EU protests, marking the second round of sanctions this year. Meanwhile, Georgian Foreign Minister Mako Bochorishvili is visiting Hungary to strengthen diplomatic and economic ties. Our correspondent Nini Nikolashvili brings us all the latest details from Tbilisi.
Germany has imposed fresh sanctions on Georgian officials claimed to be responsible for what Berlin described as the crackdown on pro-EU demonstrations while Georgian Foreign Minister Mak Abocharishvili is on a visit to Hungary as part of wider diplomatic efforts to bolster Tbilisi's relations with individual European countries. The German Foreign Ministry announced entry bans on unidentified officials linked to what is described as suppression of the pro-EU demonstrations. This is the second round of sanctions from Berlin following the similar measures in December 2024. The move seems to testify to Germany's growing concern over latest political developments in Georgia, where protests demanding European integration have continued nearly for 3 months. Meanwhile, Georgian Foreign Minister Mak Abocharishvili met with Hungarian counterpart Peter Szijjártó in Budapest, attending the Hungarian Ambassadors Conference and discussing economic and diplomatic cooperations. She emphasized Georgia's strategic role in regional infrastructure projects, including the Middle Corridor initiative with Azerbaijan, and thanked Hungary for its support within EU structures. While the Georgian government strengthened ties with Hungary, known for challenging EU policies, the opposition continues to seek support from Brussels. The opposition still leans towards EU integration, hoping that protests and international pressure could change internal political dynamics in country, whereas the government appears to foster closer ties to nations resisting the mainstream European policies. This is Nina Nikolaishvili reporting from Tbilisi, A News.
That's all for now. Thank you for joining us and keep watching A News.